I want to talk today about the difference between life hacks and having a process. Life hacks is this term that we have used a lot in our modern times because it really fits with the idea of technology. And life hacks are really activities and things that you take or do that are designed to sort of help you have an advantage or an edge in the moment to stay out of problems, like certain people who microdose mushrooms, or I take a cold shower in the morning, or different kinds of like supplements people take to improve brain function. It's all really valuable. Hacks are really just like kind of like this way of getting ahead of the curve. But I think that the trouble with hacks, and why I think they're popular now, is that we live in a time that's really, really fast. And also the technology is so much more evolved than we are. So there's this idea of being in a race. And I don't think that's necessarily new to Western culture, but this race is to get ahead of the curve, to compete in some way, and to be the best. It doesn't really include how important it is for us to be in our emotions, to be able to be vulnerable, and to be able to be in the exploration of life moment to moment without feeling that we're competing or we have to be at our best, that we can make mistakes, that we can learn about ourselves. Hacks are really a lot about seeking things on the outside to use to sort of change the chemistry of who we are. And it's a very fine line because effigy breath, which is the technique that I've been with for 30 years, you're breathing very strongly through the mouth. And of course, it changes a person's chemistry, and that is the point. And we do effigy breath because a lot of what goes on in the brain is unclear. And when you start to do this breath work, it like puts you into the greater part of yourself, the greater mind, the mind that is not just linear and survival, but the mind that has desire and passion and love and empathy. So life hacks have their value, and sometimes people even use effigy breath as a hack. But a process is a completely different thing. A process isn't about a goal. It's not about a destination. A process is more about who you are on the journey rather than what you're trying to get to. If you're trying to get to anything in a process, it's not a physical location. It's a location inside yourself that is in acceptance of your life. Acceptance is such a key word in personal development work, in growing, because a lot of our trying to get to things or trying to be better has a lot to do with avoiding what's there. And that avoidance is connected to, the things that happened to us when we were young, when we were children. And we're wired up to avoid those experiences. And I'm not even talking about the experiences you remembered or the big events. Conditioning, programming happens from the moment you're born, before you have true memory and a linear mind. So a lot of what you have that are insecurities and fears and things like that were wired in before the experiences that you can remember. So it's very deeply hidden and buried for reasons that are there that it's designed to protect you from pain. So that's why it's the programming wants you to be to avoid pain. The problem with avoiding pain is that it's inside you. So it is there. You can't say, oh, well, I can avoid something. Like it's in you. So it's there all the time. you just don't make contact with it. Because when we get older, we are trying to live a life and we don't think about the past so much. Now, of course, we think about it a little bit, but what we're interested in, all of us, is the life we're living now, is fulfilling our life purpose and feeling that we are on purpose in every moment. And to me, a life purpose is not a destination that is fixed. And therefore, it's not something you're competing for, and it's not something that you can gain an advantage in by taking a cold shower in the morning, which I think is a good thing because I do it myself. But a process is about who you are. It's about a way of being on the journey. You know, it's very cliche. They say success is a journey, not a destination. And really, if your life purpose was a destination, it would be the journey itself. It's being in the process. A process implies time and space. And this is something that has to be learned. And life is not learned in a day. Our lessons are not learned in a day. So a process is really something that you're going to learn from a teacher. And if there is a technique or a practice involved, in our case, breathwork, effigy breathwork, it's how the practice is used by the teacher to help you to be in a place of acceptance, to be able to face those hidden wounds and pains that prevent you from living your potential. A life hack can make you feel better in the moment, but it's always temporary. And what we're looking for that's permanent is something that can never be taken from you. And a process can't be taken from you because a process can be applied to any situation at any time, no matter how bad it is. What I notice is, even in myself, but when we look at situations, difficult situations out in the world, tragedies and pain, we often identify with the helplessness that people have in those situations, which could be is a very real thing. But what we miss is part of why we identify with the helplessness is because of our own helplessness, because we don't have a process. I'm going to share a quick story with you. I was traveling across the border from Canada to the United States after I had gotten my green card, and I had been detained at the border many times. I had, a type of a personality that authorities like to stop. And at this time, I had my paperwork together, but they detained me anyways, and they said there was a problem and I was going to be deported because I didn't have the correct paperwork. And I could feel this feeling that was arising in me that had been there my whole life, part of my own patterning around authority and the fear of adults and the fear of authority and what they could do to stop me from living my life. And in that moment, I was in my process of realizing that my own power that was at a soul level, my own acceptance of my own experience in that moment, allowed me to look at the situation and accept where I was. And in the process of allowing that, the way I related to all the people I came in contact before, who I used to see as the perpetrators and the controllers of my destiny, I related to them in a more honest way, and they were some of the nicest people I had ever spoken to. And at the time, I was doing some type of reading work, and the person who stopped me, who was part of the government, who was deciding on whether or not I was going to be sent back, ended up letting me giving him a reading, and then he let me go. Now, it's a sort of a dramatic example of what I'm trying to say. If you have a process, when you start to feel the upset of a situation that reminds your body, mind, your mental, emotional, energetic body of the past, you're not going to be able to control your automatic responses. So if you develop a process, you develop a relationship with yourself. And when the time comes that something happens that triggers you, you go to your process, not to fighting with the outside or trying to create some strategy or hack. You just go back to learning how to accept and work with your own self. Because your problems in life are inherently married to the potential of fulfilling your life purpose. If you can really understand that, the problems are the solutions. The difficulties of life are the things you need to fulfill your purpose. And when you begin to accept that, you can use those things to develop a process for yourself so that in any situation, the most upsetting thing becomes fuel for your life purpose. So that's the difference between a hack and a process. A process is for life and can be never taken from you. And hacks are very worthy and worthwhile activities to do to help you deal with the stresses of life, but they are only so deep and somewhat temporary.